Hello and welcome to the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight presented by Sports Car Market Magazine. I'm Darin Roberge. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also be sure to join in the conversation and share your thoughts by leaving us a comment below. Our guest today is Jakob Greisen. He is Vice President and Head of U.S. Motoring for Bonhams. Welcome back, Jakob.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here again.
Absolutely. So go ahead and recap some of the latest Bonhams news. You guys have obviously been incredibly busy since the last time we saw you.
We have, yes. We, here late in the year, we got one more sale left in London here in about 2 weeks, but we had our Milan sale about a week and a half ago. We had the suit sale in Belgium back in October. I think we total about nearly 20 auctions this year. But sort of some of the latest and most exciting news is that we formed a partnership with Formula One. So we're going to be hosting, for sure, a sale at the Abu Dhabi Formula One finale in 2023. It's the last race of the season. Many surely watched, Verstappen had won the championship many races ago, but watched Vettel's last race and all of that. I'm a big Formula One fan myself, so it's a really exciting thing to be part of. They will be partnering with Formula One and doing a few auctions throughout their race calendar. So,
yeah, that's an enormously exciting announcement. Certainly, Formula One is a major event and a perfect partner for you guys. It seems like that was sort of an inevitable situation that was bound to happen eventually with a major auction house. So, how did you guys win that race?
It was a lot of negotiations, and they wanted to make sure they had the right partner. We have sold the most valuable Formula One car ever sold. That's just one reason, I would say. But also our international footprint. I think they like that. We like their international footprint as well. And their reach, especially for our online auctions. The higher end cars, $1 million and up, especially the more sort of collectible, 50s, 60s cars like that, you might not always find a whole lot more new buyers for those cars. I believe we have those down pretty well, but for our online auctions, the Market by Bonhams, that's a much broader audience where, we sell cars from 20,000 to 80 or 100,000. And that audience, there's obviously a lot more people around the world that are wanting to spend that money on a car. So we feel quite confident that that's where we'll see a lot of growth,
Yeah, since the last time you spoke with us, you guys did launch the Market by Bonhams, and I'll tell you, it's a fascinating site. There's all kinds of weird, interesting, cool things on there that you may not see other places. What have you really noticed in particular is different between the online auction space and the live event space?
Well, we've been doing online auctions at Bonhams for a long time. I mean, we've had online bidding for the last 10 years or so. I would say it's sort of specific cars that do very well online. Other cars are better seen in person. They might be a more emotional purchase. But I see it's a space that's growing, and we want to be part of it. That's for sure. As we said, through the pandemic, the height of the pandemic in 2020, and couldn't do much. I was certainly worried if people were coming back to live auctions, things like that. But we've had very strong live auctions as well this year. So, there's absolutely room for both. I think as a rule of thumb, a live auction is more of a full service environment for buyer and seller, especially seller. So, and that for the more high end cars that comes in handy and is the way that most sellers feel comfortable with. The online platforms are probably a little more driven by dealers and specialists in their field. So I think that's sort of, it's like if you think about trading stocks, if you do it on your own and just, buy whatever you think will go up, you might be doing all right. But if you go through a broker, or if you're selling a house or something like that, so I think that extra level of service and expertise is what the live auctions, has at a higher level, because obviously you're paying a higher commission. So, there's room for that, where the online business is more volume. Obviously, there's not a lot of meat on the bone,
Yeah, definitely. It's a different buyer and and a different seller that's, I think, attracted to each particular platform here. But we're here to talk about live auctions today, in particular Arizona and your upcoming Scottsdale Car Week auction. So why don't you give a rundown of that and kind of explain to somebody what that event is all about if they've never been before?
Absolutely. So Scottsdale, this will be our 12th Scottsdale auction. We're at the Westin Keelan, which is a beautiful resort. Scottsdale, Arizona in January is normally, the weather is normally very nice. You're just sort of coming out of the holidays, and we get a lot of, snowbirds, a lot of people traveling from all over the US and all over the world. I would peg the Scottsdale auction sort of at the same level as Pebble Beach, Monterey, or Amelia Island. So you see, high quality cars, a broad array of cars, which Bonhams is known for. We sell cars spanning the whole spectrum, 125 years, and you get a little bit of everything in Scottsdale. But yeah, it's a great venue, great, Scottsdale auction is always fun. I've been coming there for about 20 years almost. And, yeah, good time of the year. I'll say people could definitely come out.
Its location on the calendar, I think, is also key, being as it's really sort of the first major event of the new year and kind of does set the standard for the marketplace moving forward. Do you see any significance kind of with that and what direction that's going to take things moving into 23?
Yeah, it's the first sort of real, market parameter. There are multiple auctions out there, and you will quickly get a good read on the market, where it's heading. But again, I think it's a lot about the right car in front of the right crowd. You could see something not do well there, but maybe do a lot better in Monterey because the right people are in the seats for it on that day, But yeah, generally it's a good parameter for the market.
Were you kind of expecting the market to show going in and out of Scottsdale this year? Are you expecting anything in particular, any major shifts in any direction?
I think we'll see largely what we've seen coming out of the pandemic. So the 2022 sales have been generally pretty steady. Some cars have gone up. There's definitely pockets of sort of sub-markets that have, accelerated in price quite heavily. Also, there are some pockets that have gone down a bit. So I see sort of the same trajectory as what we've seen, since the pandemic and since we sort of saw, the world stop a bit. I would say as sort of an overall view from my perspective, a lot of times, the buyers and the sellers will have their own view, what he or she thinks is the right thing to do in the current situation, in the current time. So you have people right now saying, wow, stock market it's been very rocky. You have inflation, I'm going to put money in tangible assets. You have other people saying, well, the market's down, the stock market's down. I want to put money in the stock market because it's probably going to go up. So there's so many ways to look at it. At the end of the day, there's thank God a lot of, car collectors that are really collectors. So they buy these cars with passion. They buy them because they want to have them in their garage and enjoy them on rallies and things. They don't buy them just for an investment. If it was not a sound investment, I'm sure less people will be doing it, but it's proven to be sound. So, I think we'll get a good mix of people out there that will buy for their own reasons. And, it's up to us to present them with the right cars, which also is absolutely key. The collector car market is heavily driven by the right cars. You often see, you can see a similar model of cars, maybe a 300 SL or a Jaguar E-Type, and you can see a spread. You can see one sell for twice as much as the other one. Really, just because, well, not just because, but because maybe car was differently restored, or was all original, or one is matching numbers, the other one isn't. So, it's so important that you sort of dive into each individual car and evaluate why did that bring that on that day.
I mean, there's definitely conflicting strategies out there that people are trying to do different stuff. But I think one thing everybody can agree on is the right cars, as you mentioned, bring the best money. The best cars, the most vetted cars, the most equipped cars bring the best money. And you guys have a bunch of cars that qualify for that. And let's just start at the top here from your Scottsdale catalog. The John White Ramshead Collection. Give an overview of that and kind of talk about who he was and give kind of an idea of what stuff is in that collection.
Absolutely. Yeah. The John White was a good friend of mine, really a lovely gentleman, sadly passed away early this year. He assembled an amazing collection of mid 50s, 60s, Americana cars, as we call them, but also some really interesting, design study, coach built cars by Kia. He's got 3 of the Kia concept or design study cars. One is the Super Dart 400, which was just shown in Pebble Beach this year. A one-off, really wild, 57 Kia, absolutely such a cool car. The other one is the L6.4, which they made about 25 of, I believe, something like that. His car is very original interior, paint, all that. And, those were owned by the likes of Frank Sinatra and guys like that. That's a little later, 1962. And then the third of sort of the trifecta of Gia's he had is the 54 GS1, which is more sort of a rounded design. It reminds me a lot of the early 50s Ferraris, the GT cars, just with the fenders. It's a beautiful fastback coupe. That car has been shown in Pebble Beach 3 times. So I think as that sort of overall comment on John's cars, they're in such great condition. He really kept them in absolute excellent condition, and what needed to be done, he would do to them. I went on the photo shoots for the cars, and that's where we often find out if something works or not. And yeah, it was just so impressive that him and his team had kept these cars in great condition.
Yeah, those are known cars too. A couple of them were New York Auto Show cars. The Super Dart was a Torino Auto Show car, and very rare too. The Super Dart, again, one-off concept, only one of those, and then the 54 GS1, one of only 9 produced. So an incredible opportunity. Those cars will certainly disappear into collections and not be seen for many years. So if somebody's interested in those, now's the time. But there's also some things in that collection that are a little bit more normal, I guess we could say, but equally as spectacular. One that caught my eye in particular, 1955 Chrysler Imperial Newport hardtop, rare AC equipped car, and it's believed to be the last existing springtime edition example, as well as it is no reserve. What are your thoughts on that car?
Yes, I like those mid 50s Chryslers. They were a little more innovative than GM and Ford. Again, this car is in impeccable condition, and yeah, they called it springtime edition. I believe it probably came out in the spring of 1955, and everything is sort of different shades of yellow. So beautiful car. The other couple of other great cars. He's got a 62 Lincoln Continental, which he bought from the original owner, which has about 40,000 miles, I believe, and it's totally original. It was in Sacramento. That's where the Ramshead Collection was. Super original car, and you see a lot of those in convertibles that are beautifully restored and things like that. But a four-door sedan is actually a lovely car. Just the design of that is like, true mid-century, like very few other cars.
It's an expensive car to kind of keep and maintain too. So somebody really loved that car. That car also was shown at Pebble Beach, and it is a no reserve vehicle as well. You've got another car that caught my eye as well. 1953 Buick Skylark convertible. Again, another Pebble Beach car. 37-year ownership on that car.
Yeah, no, same thing. Also, very original, preserved car. Personally for me, original cars will always have a leg up on a restored car. They are only original ones, and it speaks so much to how they've been taken care of, and they just drive differently too. But yeah, like you said, that car, Buick Skylark or Lincoln Continental, that's pretty hard to get into Pebble Beach. You're not. That's very difficult to get into Pebble Beach. So the fact that they picked John's cars, in different years, speaks a lot to the quality of the collection, and also just the level of an enthusiast he was. He genuinely loved cars. His father had a Dodge dealership in New York back in the day, and a real car guy. And yeah, shame he's gone.
There's a amazing pride of ownership throughout that entire collection of cars, and I agree with you on the unrestored cars. For me, cars are about people. And everybody appreciates a 100-point restored car, certainly, but when it's an unrestored, loved car, the fact that it exists in the first place, regardless of what it is, means that somebody loved that car and it was important enough for them to keep it around and keep it out of the junkyard and so on. So when you see a car that's original that has ownership like that, it's a testament to that person's life. Where they've been, their first dates, their marriages, their college graduations, the birth of their children. This car was a central component of that. And that's something you just don't get with a restored car that really makes that originality special. In addition, you're right. Once the car comes apart, it never really drives the same either. So those unrestored survivor cars really are incredible, no doubt.
Yeah.
Moving on to some a little bit more eclectic parts of the collection here. Although we kind of covered some 50s American stuff. You've got a couple really interesting Porsches that are not necessarily stock cars. The first one, 1966 Porsche 911 2-liter coupe. It's a short wheelbase car with a 911R theme that was done by social media sensation Magnus Walker. Why don't you run down that car?
Yeah, that's a lovely car. It's actually from Europe. It's from Denmark, where I grew up. And I convinced him that the States was the place to sell it. Yeah, Mr. Walker did that car back in, I believe, around 2010 or so. Sold it on. But yeah, really, really cool, sort of hot rod, early 911. I like the early 911s. The design is very pure. 64, 65 through 73, sort of the first model. And the earliest ones, the 2-liter cars, are just so pure in the design and everything. Really a fun car to drive as well. I have not driven this car, but I'm excited to drive it. And, with the 2-liter, they weren't the fastest cars when they came out, but I'm sure with Magnus Walker's upgrades, it's a very well performing car. Another one, which is a 356, so the model just before us, an Outlaw of those that we have, an Outlaw coupe, which was done by some really impressive shops. Been to SEMA, been to a lot of different shows. So those two as a pairs is pretty interesting. Porsches in general are doing very well these days. They're great cars. They're usable. For the most part, they're pretty affordable. You can get into one of these cars for, in the mid 100s or so. Also, the brand is still in business and is doing well, which I think is a big factor, actually. Often if you look at the cars that are doing well, the classic cars, the 50s or the pre-war, post-war, Porsche is doing well, Mercedes doing well, Ferrari, the brands that are still in business and really doing well today, often will help the 50, 60, 70-year-old models, be very sought after as well.
Another thing that helps too is racing prominence. You've got a very, very interesting race car from Ferrari. 2001 F1 authorized Micheal Schumacher show car. It was built to celebrate Michael Schumacher's wins. What exactly is that?
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't, it is a race car on paper, but it obviously never raced. So Ferrari made these, I think they made 20 or 30 of them or so to obviously the factory cars, the cars that they would race, stayed within Scuderia Ferrari. Some of them were sold, very few of them, but a lot of them, some of them were crushed or also used for development of the years. But they made a handful of cars that, the most prominent Ferrari dealers would have in their showroom. And this is one of those that certified by Ferrari and all of that. So it's not a car you will be able to take to Monza and see if you can go faster than Micheal Schumacher did, but you can put it on your wall. You can have it in your collection, and the suspension, the bodywork, everything is identical to the ones they raced. So it's a you can call it a pretty expensive sculpture, but it's one of the best sculptures out there. And again, it is a Ferrari. It's not made by a third party or something like that. So yeah, interesting car.
Yeah, and who wouldn't want a Micheal Schumacher F1 car on their wall? That seems like a kind of a no-brainer to me.
Right? Yeah.
Another no-brainer you have. I've been pretty vocal on this show about my love of C3 Corvettes, shared by some guests, not so much by others, but you guys have about as good a one as you're going to find anywhere. 1971 Chevrolet Corvette. It's a ZR2, which is basically the 454 version of the ZR1. The thing that's special about this car is it's out of a 45-year ownership, one of 12 ZR2 cars produced. It's got an LS6 in it, F1 suspension, Rock Crusher 4-speed transmission, and it's no reserve. Where are you going to find a better Corvette than that?
Your Corvettes there, and I can tell. I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but yeah, interesting car. My colleague consigned it out of the UK, where it's been, like you said, for more than 4 decades. Car was entered in the Targa Florio race actually as well back in, must have been in the 70s when it wasn't that old. So this is a rare bird. I think they made 12 or so. That's how many of them are known. Very interesting car. That car is also selling without reserve, actually. It's been on a long boat ride from the UK and it's a one-way trip. So,
That car checked so many boxes. It's crazy. If you're a Corvette enthusiast of any type, this is a car that you want to be in the room and you want to try to get into your collection. No question about that. You've got a couple great roadsters as well. 53 Seata 208F Spider, class winner at Pebble Beach, restored by specialists. And of course, that car is going to be eligible for absolutely everything. Give us a rundown on that one.
Yes. That's one of my favorites, my personal favorites. The Seata 208S or the Fiat 8V. Same chassis, same engine, little 2-liter V8 all aluminum engine, independent suspension, great brakes, and some of the best coach work in that great era, early 50s Italian coach building era. So this is the Spider by Motto. They made 31 of them. This is a great car. I've had the pleasure of selling it before, actually. Lovely car to drive. Again, the suspension, the engine, everything makes for a really good handling car. Fiat and Seata, this was way above what they were normally putting out. In the teens, in the 1910, 1920s, they made incredible cars, Fiat, and they still make good cars, but they made, rare, just all out sport cars and things like that. Then they went to, like most of Italy and Europe in the, during the war, pre-war and post-war, they started making more cars for the masses, not as exotic or desirable today. But the 8Bs or the Seata, same thing, they were head and shoulders above what they were making. So lovely car. You can do the Mille Miglia, just one Pebble Beach. It's class, which is a pretty tough class. So, amazing machine.
Yeah, that's a car that's somebody's gonna be real happy with it. Somebody did the work to get all the right stuff done to it and put it in a position where it's going to fit real well in someone's collection. Another vehicle that undisputably will be another star of the show. 58 BMW 507 Series 2 Roadster, one of 253. It's got Rudge wheels, hard top disc brakes, books and tools, has everything, and it's gorgeous silver over red. Give us the scoop on that one.
Yeah, again, very much like the Seata. BMW were making Isettas in these years. That's what they were doing. And they wanted to make a car that really sort of would, compare or maybe one up Mercedes with their 300 SLs. The design of a 507, in my opinion, is one of the best looking cars ever made. How the fenders, just the line is incredible. Also an all aluminum V8, like the Seata. Eligible for many things. They only made 250 some cars. We've sold a few this year. They seem to be coming out of the woodwork. I would love to have a 507. Elvis had one. What else is there to say?
Yeah, I mean, what else is there? Yeah, you guys have really assembled a pretty good group of cars that it will be exciting for people to come and check out in Scottsdale. So I definitely invite everybody to come take a look and enjoy your sale for sure. Okay, Jakob, you're out in the world all the time. In fact, you're everywhere around the world all the time. You're one of the most knowledgeable car guys in the world. So why don't you give us one car to buy, one car to sell, one car to hold, Arizona Car Week edition. Let's go.
Certainly. Yeah, not an easy question if you ask me, but I'll do my best. Well, easy to say, but you should buy what you love, sell what you don't love, and to hold what you can't live without. But I would say, if I look at the market right now, there's a couple of there's quite a few sort of sub markets. There are things that are from the 20s and 30s that are doing well, and other cars from that era that are not. There's a lot of cars from the 80s and 90s that are doing very well. But sort of a part that I think is overlooked a bit right now is 50s and 60s European sports cars, maybe Alfa Giuliettas or, 50s and 60s Ferraris. We now see 50s Ferraris bring half the price of an F40, which, if you do the math, of course, it's a lot of romance, but with 1,200 F40s made, and if you think of a 250 Roper GT or so that could be had for maybe $2.25 million, which is less than an F40, that to me doesn't make sense. I think so. So I think generally 50s and 60s sports cars from the prominent brands, Mercedes, Ferrari, also Porsche, they should be more valuable. Other cars, the cars from the 80s and 90s have risen a lot in value. But generally, if you find the car that you can't just go and buy on any day of the week, you find something that knocks your socks off and that checks out, you should buy it, and you should pay 10% more than the other ones. That's normally your best buy. Like, I think Bruce Myers said, you cry once, and that, you cry when you buy it, and that's it, So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because I could go on for hours on this. But you can add probably that cars that are eligible for events, the Bentleys from the 20s are doing very well. Sport cars generally that you can drive and enjoy. Also, again, cars where the brand is still in business and doing well will normally be something better to buy than something that nobody knows about. And definitely cars that made their mark on each era. If you look at the cars right now from the 80s and 90s and 2000s that are really going up a lot in price, which, by the way, most things become valuable sort of when they're about 30, 40 years old. That's when they get that uptick and go from being a used car to being a collectible car and sort of really being recognized. So you see cars, from the 90s and 80s, and the cars you see doing the best is the ones that were sort of biggest icons, the most, the cars that people remember, the ones that were on the cover of the magazines. So that's why you see an F40 do so well, a Carrera GT, or the Black Series Mercedes, So generally what made its mark on the specific era it was made will most likely be, your best buy,
Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff is generational. Certainly, people see things when they're small, and then it becomes aspirational for them later. But I do agree with you on the Enzo era cars from the 50s and 60s. It seems like they did their ballooning in 2013, 2014, and now they're kind of back to a spot where they make a lot of sense. I mean, candidly, if we're looking at a 275 GTB4 versus an F40, I mean, they're both phenomenal cars, but it's a no-brainer for me. I'm taking a 275. So what are you selling?
I would say, you should sell what you don't enjoy, but you should sell cars with issues, cars that, aren't as they were when they left the factory. Well, probably not a Singer, but, generally you want to sell what, talking from a sort of an investment side of it, you want the car to be as close as it was at the factory. So, and that has become more and more important. Back in the 80s and 90s, people weren't too worried about, new bodywork, engines, things like that. But nowadays, it's a very big driving factor of what people buy. So you should sell what isn't really the best quality, I would say.
Well, and originality is timeless if you think about it. I mean, it's never going to go out of style. Whereas with some of these resto mods, as fun and as collectible as they can be during the time, I mean, how many, for example, hot rods with tweed interiors and big giant chrome wheels and fiery paint jobs, that have tribal stuff on them, are we seeing for half of what they cost to build them for sale in a lot at some big show someplace? I mean, trends come and trends go, and with resto mods, that's something that's really affected. Whereas again, with original cars, they're timeless. I mean, they are the way that they're supposed to be. So, long term, what are we holding?
What are we holding? I mean, you should hold the cars that puts a smile on your face when you take them out. That's. But again, I think if you own a 50s or 60s or even 70s sport car that might be a little softer right now, I would definitely hold that, because I think they're going to become more valuable. Yeah.
I mean, that's it at the end of the day, is that's what it's ultimately about, is enjoying what you love. And if you have something you love, you should hang on to it. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, Darin, going back to what we just talked about with you want the cars to be as close to original as they were. I think what a very interesting thing in the market right now is how well the Singer cars are doing. The Singer Porsches. I mean, they have an incredible brand. Same with the roof cars. They have made some incredible cars, and they become very valuable, in my opinion. And people are standing in line to buy them. So it will be interesting in 20 years if you look at those as sort of very, the 2020s, or you look at them as something timeless, like a Strosek Porsche. You probably remember those. They might not be as in favor, and that's really not the hot thing this year. So, that I find that interesting how those will, but again, they're really making their mark on this era, and they're building, there are very few things that are Porsche in that car. They're reimagining it as they call it. And it's impressive, but it will be interesting down the road how they look on, right?
So do you think that the roof cars are kind of a barometer for what the Singers are going to do? And of course, we've seen knockoffs of the Singers that may wind up sort of in the same general pile as the Strosek cars. But, I mean, do you see any similarities between what Roof has done, previously with the Yellowbird cars and so on, and what Singer's doing with their cars?
I think they do things in two different ways. Roof has more more history. Of course, they made cars back in the 80s. I've been to Alois's place. It's an incredible place. So they made, I think, Singer's more into design, aesthetics and things. Also the engineering. But I think they're two different cars, Is it a lot of romance? I think it probably is with the Singers. I think it's a bit of romance. It's impressive that people are standing in line for them like that. I'm not knocking the quality whatsoever, but that would be an interesting car to watch. See where that ends up.
Yeah, they're very interesting indeed. So where can people go if they want to learn more, if they want to register a bid or consign or do anything else Bonhams related?
So you go to bonhams.com. Bonhams.com, you'll go to the motoring side of things and you can see all of our upcoming auctions. Scottsdale, like we talked about today, just a week and a half after Scottsdale, we have a Paris auction during the Retromobile week in Paris. Then we got Amelia Island coming up. We're consigning for Amelia Island at this point. And just stay close to bonhams.com and you can follow along what we're doing.
Very busy time of the year, no doubt. I would like to thank my guest, Jakob Greisen, for joining us today. To learn more about anything that we discussed here, be sure to pick up the latest issue of Sports Car Market Magazine by visiting the link in the video description below. As a reminder, if you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay on top of future episodes. I'm Darin Roberge. Thank you for joining us on the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight.